Welcome to another episode of Case of Interest Kohberger. I'm Newswatch 16 Stacey Lang. This is our exclusive web series where we go through the University of Idaho murder case document by document and give you updates as they progress in Idaho courts from here in Pennsylvania, where of course, the defendant, Bryan Kohberger, is from. He's a Monroe County native. That is our interest in this University of Idaho case. The year is 2025. This is our first episode of 2025, which means Kohberger was arrested, believe it or not, 2 years ago, a little over 2 years ago. This is also, of course, the year that we are expecting the case to go to trial. The trial set for late summer in Boise, Idaho. A change of venue was decided over this past summer, 2024. So we are anticipating that summer trial. We're looking ahead to it, and it's a busy week in Idaho courts in preparation for this case. Kohberger, his defense team, and the prosecution are all in a virtual hearing with the judge right now on January 21st, discussing some of the legalities of a hearing that's going to be held later on in the week. And we'll get into all of that when we're talking here, but you can also expect us to bring you updates probably by Friday once all of these hearings are wrapped up. The issue on the table is suppression of evidence. This is a common tactic from the defense to try and suppress whatever evidence they think might be damaging or perhaps, and this is what is being alleged here, collected improperly by investigators. So that hearing on the 23rd, on Thursday, is set to be a public hearing to discuss what evidence is allowed to be suppressed or not in Kohberger's favor. Right now, the hearing is closed to the public because there is discussion over whether or not some data collected in this case, some evidence collected in this case should be released to the public or not. So that's why it's being discussed behind closed doors, actually virtually, right now on Tuesday, the 21st. I have the order calling that hearing up right now. Again, January 21st in Idaho. They're discussing this IGG DNA. That's a term we're going to use a lot. IGG stands for Investigative Genetic Genealogy. We've talked a lot about it here on Case of Interest. There's been a lot of reporting about how important the genetic genealogy in this case was. Of course, there was DNA left at the crime scene on a knife sheath that was left behind. And prosecutors say that DNA then matched Kohberger's father's DNA that was collected in Monroe County. And that brings us to where we are today. And what Kohberger's defense team is asking is for a lot of that science to be released to the public. A lot of it's under seal right now. Let's take a look at the motion that was filed. I want to say the very beginning of January by Kohberger's defense team asking for this IGG DNA data to be released. There's a lot that you can read through. We'll include the link in the description of this video, but it kind of is summed up in the conclusion here that says Mr. Kohberger has a right to a public trial and the public has a right to know how genetic information was used in this case. Neither the state nor Mr. Kohberger will be prejudiced by unsealing the briefing and holding the IGG hearing in an open court. The pleadings and hearings should be unsealed. That's what's being discussed in a closed hearing right now. How much of this information we hear on Thursday, or if we hear it at all, remains to be seen. We'll find that out on Thursday. There was another court filing that I found interesting related to this topic that was actually filed back in 2023. So when all of this evidence was being presented to the defense in discovery, and this part of the IgG DNA data was sealed, the prosecution anticipated that this ask might come down the line, that the defense might want this information to become public. So in anticipation of that, this document kind of goes through the arguments against that ahead of time, almost 2 years later. Now we're just broaching this topic, but this one passage in particular kind of hits the nail on the head as to the prosecution's argument against why this is sensitive data and that it was collected properly. And it goes back to that knife sheath. It says, if you can see it towards the top of your screen, the K-bar knife sheath was abandoned at the scene, as was the DNA inside it. Defendant cannot show that he had a reasonable expectation of privacy in DNA left at the scene of a quadruple homicide, or in the genetic information of his relatives who voluntarily provided their own DNA to a genetic genealogy service, which we've talked a lot about here on Case of Interest, that connection was made because relatives' DNA was available on, we don't know what website, but one of these genealogy websites. So that kind of quashes what might be a Fourth Amendment argument that this information shouldn't be involved in the case. So that all remains to be seen. That is going to be discussed in closed court today, and then we might hear some of it on Thursday. That hearing scheduled for Thursday. They also have Friday reserved in case it takes so long that they have to go into the next day. We'll be paying attention to all of it, and we'll be back here on Case of Interest to give you the update. Thanks for watching.